Stakeholders optimistic ongoing reforms and investments in power sector would achieve 8,000 megawatts of electricity generation and distribution in the next 1 year. Federal government strengthening Nigeria's health workforce through strategic public and private partnerships.
Quite a number of our health workers are leaving the country in droves. And if we're able to create more avenue to train more.
Minister of Works directs immediate closure of portion of Abuja Kefi flyover due to dislocation. Hello and welcome to the news at 3 on NTA News24. We're live from Abuja. I am Mina Daniels. President Bola Tinubu has departed Abuja for Kano for a sympathy visit over the death of the late renowned businessman and philanthropist Alhaji Aminu Dantata. The presidential flight departed via the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport at about 2:45 this Friday afternoon. Senate President Godswill Akpabio is also in the presidential team for the trip. In Kano, the president is scheduled to condole with the Kano state government and the family of the deceased. Alhaji Aminu Dantata passed on in Abu Dhabi, UAE on June 28th. The Minister of Education, Maruf Olatunji Alausa, on behalf of the Federal Minister of Education and the Nigerian education sector, extends profound appreciation to President Bola Tinubu on the decision to immortalize late President Muhammadu Buhari through the renaming of the University of Maiduguri, Borno State, as Muhammadu Buhari University of Maiduguri. In a statement, the minister acknowledges that President Buhari's administration was marked by notable reforms in national security, anti-corruption, infrastructure, agriculture, and human capital development, including the Anchor Borrowers Program and social investment schemes, which significantly contributed to national progress. The Minister of Education is deeply honored that the sector has been chosen as a channel through which the late president's legacy will be permanently enshrined. Dr. Alausa notes, and I quote, President Tinubu's decision reflects not only deep empathy and respect, but also a firm belief in education as a bedrock of national development. His commitment to human capital development is unwavering and consistent with the path of national renewal that President Buhari championed. End of quote. Guests on Good Morning Nigeria have applauded the Federal Executive Council for convening an extraordinary session to honor late former President Muhammadu Buhari, reflecting on his enduring legacy of discipline, patriotism, and incorruptible leadership. The guests believe Nigerians must strive to emulate his down-to-earth personality and leadership style. Lydia Sampson reports.
Unwavering in his moral convictions and untainted by the trappings of power, Buhari's integrity, resistance to political temptation, his role as a moral compass in public service resonated with guests on Good Morning Nigeria.
So what it shows us is that some truths have become universal about him. When they talked about his honesty, his forthrightness, his simplicity, his humility, everything was just in line with the man Buhari.
Very easygoing, and he was just a leader, and he expected, that everybody would live up to their, responsibilities and so on, and that was it.
His spirit about fighting corruption was very, very. Everybody will tell you that it was factual. I say factual because anybody that told you, that will tell you that Buhari was pretending when he was fighting corruption, that person is not a Nigerian.
We should also, take away from everything that was said yesterday that he was morally upright. I hope and I pray that those who were putting their mouth on the microphone to say Buhari was morally upright should accept also that it is a virtue to be morally upright and to be morally upright themselves.
The guest noted the late president viewed leadership and service as a divine opportunity and prioritized leaving behind lasting legacies. They echoed his concern for Nigerians, thereby withholding bailouts for governors who hitherto did not pay civil servant salaries until they paid. The guests are on the same page that his trust in people to do the right things was abused but never compromised his integrity. While celebrating Buhari's humility and exemplary service qualities, they urge future leaders to emulate him. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
And the government of Zimbabwe has described the late former president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, as one of the African leaders who stood firmly with the people of Zimbabwe during their struggle for independence. The acting president of the country, Dr. Constantino Chiwenga, stated this during a condolence visit to the Nigerian embassy in Harare. Dr. Constantino Chiwenga, who is the vice president of Zimbabwe, pointed out that the late Nigerian former president was a forthright and upright leader that led the country with courage. He noticed that the late Nigerian leader will be remembered for his anti-corruption stance and pro-Africanism. Dr. Constantino Chiwenga commiserated with the government and the people of Nigeria for the huge loss. Responding, the Nigerian ambassador to Zimbabwe, Lazarus Basaba, thanked the government of Zimbabwe for standing with Nigeria in her moment of grief. Malaria has been a silent killer in Nigeria and Africa as a whole, affecting mostly children and the vulnerable population. The good news is that the story may soon change. The Nigerian Senate is canvassing a robust legislative move to establish a dedicated national agency that will eliminate malaria once and for all. Ignatius Sonko reports.
It is another step in the long battle against a disease that has silently claimed millions of lives across Nigeria, malaria. Inside this conference room, the Senate Committee on Health, Secondary and Primary convened a public hearing on the National Agency for Malaria Eradication Establishment Bill, sponsored by Senator Ned Nwoko.
Science-based and community-oriented strategies towards the elimination of this deadly disease.
It is time to move from seasonal campaigns to institutionalized eradication backed by law, science, and accountability.
Make sure that there are constant fumigations until there is no need to fumigate anymore.
Participants agree on a national policy on the elimination of malaria. They, however, differ on the establishment of a new agency, as there are already existing bodies saddled with elimination of the disease. The proposed National Agency for the Eradication of Malaria will be tasked with coordinating nationwide efforts through research, prevention, treatment, and advocacy.
Section 9(1)(d) of this bill be amended so that there shall be an agency, there shall be for the agency an executive secretary who shall be an environmental health officer with a minimum of 20 years post-qualification experience.
The National Malaria Elimination Program under the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare must also be strengthened to fulfill its mandate. This should not involve the creation of a new agency.
The current National Malaria Elimination Program should be granted the status of a department so that it can receive its funding directly.
The committee also commenced investigation on the alleged ripening of fruits with chemical, which followed a motion by Senator Anthony Ani. Experts highlighted the dangers of contaminated foods and their punishments.
To halt this unwholesome practice,
because it endangers health. Of course, people use snipers, for beans and other materials, so that will stem down on the misapplication of pesticides as it is.
These practices are linked to severe public health, such as cancer, kidney, and liver diseases.
Federal Oil and Gas Hospital Delta State Establishment Bill, sponsored by Senator Joel Thomas, also received public acceptance. Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
The federal government says it remains committed to strengthening Nigeria's health workforce through strategic public and private partnerships, as the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare signs a tripartite memorandum of understanding with the Federal Medical Center, Owo, and the Achievers University, Owo, Edo State. Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, Isiaq Adekunle Salako, says the MOU will allow some selected institutions to utilize facilities at FMC Owo for the clinical training of medical and allied health students, which also aligns with the renewed health agenda, which prioritizes collaboration between the public and private sectors to bridge the critical shortage of health workers in the country.
Are leaving the country in droves, and if we are able to create more avenue to train more, not only are we able to retain some of them, but we can actually tweak the immigration of health workers to a business concept.
And capacities are being built among the health workers in those hospitals. Presently, we have people from Gambia, Cameroon, who are training our staff on how to build capacities in carrying out research to develop vaccines.
Hope should not be lost about Nigerian moving forward. By the time we have 1, 2, 3 dotting the landscape, we can move forward.
The national grid is set to be relatively stable, and the Nigerian Independent System Operator, NISEL, says it is strengthening its operation to sustain the gain. At the stakeholders' engagement convened by NISEL with industry players on the future of the grid and its stability, stakeholders are optimistic that with the ongoing reforms and investments in the power sector by the federal government, Nigeria will achieve 8,000 megawatts of electricity generation and distribution in the next 1 year. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission and other industry players stress the need for compliance to market rules by the participants, while urging NISEL to sanction defaulting players in the sector.
Grid operations, long-term system planning, and the coordination and development of the electricity market.
Government has awarded new contracts for the SCADA system, covering the entire nation. Work is in progress all over across the nodal points in the system. Every day, progress is being made. We expect that by the end of next year, we should have this SCADA ready.
Federal government of Nigeria has taken about $500 million from the World Bank in loan to finance upgrade of distribution infrastructure network. Within that scope, we're going to provide 3.2 million meters for Nigeria, and of course, with the presidential metering initiative as well, which provides another 2 to 3 million meters. That's about 7 million meters in total. So we expect to see significant improvement in terms of electricity access for all Nigerians.
And the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, Imam Suleiman Ibrahim, wants Nigerian youths to seize the opportunity of skill development as a transformative tool for national growth and personal empowerment. The minister, represented by the Special Assistant Technical Princess Jumme Idonije at the opening 2025 United Nations World Youth Skills Day in Abuja, emphasizes the critical importance of equipping young Nigerians with practical, future-focused skills. Minister notes that with over 151 million young persons under the age of 35, that is nearly 70% of Nigeria's population, the country holds immense potential, but this potential must be harnessed with the right education, values, and skills set to truly drive national development. She made a case for agriculture as a critical sector where youth can explore urban gardening, food processing, and climate-smart farming to become entrepreneurs and tackle urgent food security and environmental challenges. This is the news at 3 on NTA News24. We have more reports after the break.
Let's have credible elections at the local government so that these credible people can manage the funds of local government properly.
There are a lot of respected traditional rulers in the state who can say, look, enough of this thing. Mr. Governor, welcome. Thank you for coming. When you win, what will you do?
I was the first woman that mobilized women within the local government to form the National Council of Women Society by creating awareness in women that they must serve, they must be part of what is happening within their community.
If you stop expenditure on infrastructure, how do you now attract investments?
The state governors, the presidency, that the federal government and the local government are all waiting for revenue from crude oil.
Every state has something peculiar. So the emphasis now, if your local government has something peculiar to that particular local government, the emphasis should be keep producing that particular product.
We need to do three things. Prevent the ability of the terrorist groups to generate funding, their ability to recruit, and then their ability to access weapons.
The traditional ruler gives me a title. I sit in the front row in the church, or if I'm going to mosque and I'm coming, people are passing in God's own house. What am I doing? I'm mentoring a new generation who think that the only way to be taken seriously is to be seen to have a lot of money.
Good Morning Nigeria, live every weekday between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on the network service of the NTA.
Thanks for joining us again. The Minister of Works, David Umahi, has directed for immediate closure of the affected portion of the flyover on the Abuja-Kefi Highway. This was while reacting to the incidents that happened in the early hours of Thursday that resulted in the dislocation of the flyover beam. At a press briefing in Abuja, Minister Umahi expressed displeasure over reckless attitude of heavy-duty truck drivers who violate track rules by carrying loads that undermine the 5.6 standardized headrooms of flyovers. He directed relevant authorities of the ministry to urgently evaluate the state of the bridges ahead of possible repairs.
Transmitted to the second carriageway, then it should close the first carriageway where the beam was knocked off. And it has to be immediately done because it's the beam that is carrying the slab and it's the slab that is carrying the vehicular, traffic. So it's very important that, we close the carriageway if that is the only, portion that is being affected by this very unfortunate situation.
The minister also expressed concerns over the same issues being experienced on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and explained efforts being put in place for reconstruction of the affected bridges.
We've had a meeting with, High-Tech and other contractors who are recently constructing bridges, and we have said, look, the minimum requirement for flyovers has to be 6.5 meters headroom. And we're also going to put, a kind of, gateway, heavy metal, gateway front and back, so that if a vehicle is coming, let the vehicle that is overburdened, had to contend with that, metal iron first.
The minister said some of the traffic laws and road use violators have been apprehended and charged to court. The Kogi State government has dismissed reports alleging the unlawful detention of one Abdul Hamid, the flower boy, describing them as deliberate attempts to distort facts and incite public sentiment. In a press statement by the Commissioner for Information and Communications, Kingsley Femi Fao, the government stated that Abdul Hamid was lawfully invited by security agencies following a petition against a clearly defamatory publication authored by him against the state government. Fao emphasized that the suspect voluntarily honored the police invitation, confessed to authoring the false publication, and was subsequently arraigned before a competent court of jurisdiction which ordered his remand. He stressed that, contrary to claims on social media, Abdul Hamid is not being detained illegally, but is facing prosecution in line with Nigeria's laws on defamation. The government accused unnamed political actors of sponsoring misinformation in a bid to undermine the administration of Governor Ahmed Usman Ododo, whom it said has earned the people's trust through massive investments in infrastructure, education, healthcare, agriculture, power, and civil service welfare. The commissioner drew comparisons with a previous case involving political activist Austin Okai, who was forgiven only after publicly apologizing for similar actions. The chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, Dr. Adamu Aliyu, is calling for a strong partnership between the ICPC and the Federal Character Commission to tackle job racketeering. He says the goal is to make sure every Nigerian has a fair chance during recruitment into government agencies. Dr. Aliyu made this known during a courtesy visit to the acting chairman of the Federal Character Commission, Kayode Oladele, at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja. The ICPC chairman revealed that the Commission has been receiving numerous complaints, especially from young people, about unfair practices in government job recruitment. In response, Kayode Oladele said the Federal Character Commission is open to collaborating with the ICPC and reassured Nigerians of its commitment to fairness and equity in resource distribution.
Of those employed at one particular time is from a particular state. And in that agency, we discovered that there are states that are in disadvantage. And those states, they do not have up to the 2.75%, which the law requires them to get.
I instructed that you should write a memo to all agencies to send to us their nominal rules. First of all, we want to look at them, and no agency is to be excluded. No agency is to be excluded, and I need to say this very clearly, that we have enforcement powers too.
Both agencies agreed to draft a memorandum of understanding and set up a joint working group to monitor recruitment processes across government institutions. This is the news at 3 on NTA News24. Here is a recap of our top stories. Stakeholders optimistic ongoing reforms and investments in power sector would achieve 8,000 megawatts of electricity generation and distribution in the next 1 year. Federal government strengthening Nigeria's health workforce through strategic public and private partnerships.
Quite a number of our health workers are leaving the country in droves. And if we're able to create more avenue to train more.
Minister of Works directs immediate closure of portion of Abuja KV flyover due to dislocation. In a sustained onslaught against kidnapping and violent crimes, the Nigerian police force rescues 31 kidnapped victims in 2 separate coordinated operations in Edo and Taraba states. A statement by the force notes that operatives in Edo state respond to a kidnap attack along the Fuga-Agenebode Road in Atako East local government area. A swift joint rescue mission leads to a gun duel with the kidnappers at Obe Hill, forcing the criminals to flee with injuries. 40 victims are successfully rescued, while efforts are on to apprehend the fleeing suspects. Similarly, in Taraba State, operatives swiftly mobilized to the Wukari Highway following a distress call over the abduction of 17 passengers traveling from Enugu to Yola. The kidnappers abandoned the victims and flee into the bush upon sighting advancing security forces, leaving all 17 victims unhurt. The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Betokun, commends the gallantry of the officers involved and reaffirms the force's commitment to intensify operations against criminal elements nationwide. And that concludes the news at 3 on NTA News24. Many thanks for watching. I am Mina Daniels.